This is kind of quite a pretty visually led film. There's not a lot of dialogue for a lot of it. So, I mean, when you read the script first, what were your kind of impressions?
I know what you mean. It's sort of it's difficult. You could see it in your mind's eye, but it felt like it could be a bit stilted, possibly. But I mean, actually, it's quite operatic in its in its sensibilities, and maybe that's the Korean influence. I don't know, but. I loved the story. I thought it was very dark and weird, and definitely weird, and something I hadn't done before. I mean, his Uncle Charlie, but just by the very nature of the sound of his name, he's a very disconcerting individual.
Having read the script, you knew a lot more about Matthew's character than the audience does for a lot of the time. I mean, what was that like for you guys, just knowing how much to play and how much to keep mysterious for the audience? And
it's sort of like a fine line between like giving enough information for people to be curious and ask questions, but not sort of telling them everything so that there's nothing to find out. And that's kind of the relationship between India and Uncle Charlie. You're not quite sure who's the hunter and who's being hunted, and the dynamic in that sense keeps shifting and changing.
You kind of want those characters to be unreadable as well, rather than signposting everything for an audience, because an audience is pretty intelligent, but it's more disturbing if they can't quite work them out.
And so I was talking to Park earlier about how much it's kind of a revenge story, and obviously that's what he's known for. Did you kind of see it as that?
He always talked to me about it as a coming-of-age story, as a young girl's sexual awakening and liberation, and going from girl to woman, that was sort of the way I guess I saw it, a twisted fairy tale.
There are some scenes of extreme sort of violence and sexuality. Was there anything that kind of intimidated you, or that you felt like a little bit unsure about?
I think that in those situations, the anticipation of it was probably worse than actually filming it. It's the sort of thing where, like, definitely more just waiting for it and leading up to it is harder than really sort of being there. And on a film set, you always feel quite removed from, like, it being anywhere near a real experience.
Working with Park Chan-wook, obviously it's his English language debut. What was his sort of approach like on set?
He's so meticulous and fastidious. He's drawn every frame of it before he's even started, so 90% of the film is done in his mind, and it's what the other 10% is what the actors bring, and so it's our job to do that, really. And then but he's meticulous in his nature, even down to the walls of the inside of one of the rooms had to be repainted because they weren't quite what he had on this bird's egg that he wanted. Like, my God.
Wow.
Some people could learn from your, fastidiousness.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very nice to watch a film which has had so much thought, and you just kind of wish that you could do a film with Park Chan-wook every year.